Hi guys, my name is Rachel Brinke and I am the head lawyer over at the Law Talk. I wanted to talk to you guys today about the dangers of not knowing what you don't know. I really am in the business of bringing you guys the information because you don't know what you don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword though, because a lot of times people hear legal, their eyes start glazing over, they don't want to listen. But then the other edge of it is that people understand that they need this information. So as we go through this today, I know you probably fall into one of these two camps, but I want you to listen to the things that I have to say specifically because I'm not just any lawyer providing this information for you. I am a lawyer for photographers and I'm also a photographer. Some of the things that I'm going to talk to you guys about today is going to be through that lens. Yes, pun is intended, but through the lens of being a photographer and a lawyer who is actively working with photographers all the time in my firm practice. The reason for this is I'm probably going to be able to provide you a more well-rounded view. Okay, not probably. I am going to provide you a more well-rounded view of how to approach even these little legal specifics of things that you don't know. And it'll bring like workflow type tips, maybe some little marketing stuff. We'll see just what spills out today. But before we dig into all of that, a little bit of who I am. My name is Rachel Brinke. You can hear the E at the end, and I am the only one in the world. So if you guys need to get a hold of me, feel free to reach out. I always use the joke that I have 4 brother-in-laws and none of them are married. And anytime they bring home a Rachel, I'm like, either you need to find a new girl or she needs to change her name because I've worked too long and too hard with Rachel Brinke. I halfway joke about that, but it is true. You can find me anywhere on the web, so just reach out if you have any questions. The best place to reach out to me, though, is thelawtalk.com. So like I've said, I am a lawyer. I'm also a business consultant. I have my MBA. I am the host of a number 6 iTunes podcast called The Business Bites. I am a mother of 5. I am an author of multiple published books, including children's books, believe it or not. And I just absolutely love everything about these topics, being able to help you guys protect yourself, focus on photography, and not worry about the legal stuff because that's my job. So my big disclaimer for this is I am a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. I am licensed in Virginia and Texas. Obviously, this is United States based. I'm also licensed to go before the Supreme Court of the United States. So if any of you guys ever need that, I'm your girl for that. But this is my little pesky required disclaimer that everything in this webinar is going to be educational only. Please do not take it as the golden ticket, that this is the golden egg that you need to rest your business on. Majority of the information is going to be common law, common stuff that we find across America. So this way you're knowledgeable and equipped when you're ready to go research and find information for your business, and also if you need to reach out to a local attorney. I will say here, when I get into talking about some of the federal stuff like copyright and trademark, that is federal. So that does apply across the board. And if you guys need me, I can work with any state in order to do that type of stuff for you. Before we dig into everything, I want to share to you my 3-to-1 rule. This is a rule that I developed from when I was growing my photography business in the very beginning, and it's a rule I still use today. When I first started out, I was actually in law school at the time. I already had my MBA and was doing business consulting, and I wanted to start offering photography services to my consulting clients, which is what I do now. It's kind of like all this in-house type of thing where we do legal stuff, business planning, marketing strategy, and they also can get their marketing materials and headshots from me as well. Kind of a one-stop shop. But when I started out, I was in law school when I was growing my photography business, and my husband was deployed to Iraq. We had 1 kid. I was pregnant with another. My time was so incredibly limited. I had to find the most efficient ways to do things. And I also needed to find ways to keep myself from being paralyzed from inactivity. One of the things that I developed was this 3-to-1 rule, and I still use it today. Even though I have a better management of time now, I am still using this rule when I go to make a decision in my business. So how does this work? Well, it's kind of a pros cons list, if you will. But the thing with it is, the reason that this is so effective in business is that it has become so instinctive to me that now when I look at a decision, whether I'm going to institute a new business policy in my practice or I'm going to develop a business relationship with a local business, is so instinctive by using this 3-to-1 rule that I don't have to sit and make the pros cons list. Okay, so what it is we want only one negative to every 3 positives. That's what I'm talking about in the pros and cons. So you would have one con to every 3 pros that you have. But the thing is, it's not such a hard set rule either. You want to look at it and make sure that that one negative does not completely outweigh the 3 positives. The classic example that I give that bridges across all sorts of photography, every single photography business, I don't care if you're newborn, birth, wedding, even commercial, it doesn't matter. You should be engaging in business networking. You should be engaging in these business partnerships in your area, people that are on the ground. This is especially important if you don't have a brick and mortar studio or a front retail space in order to advertise for you. It's not the be all and end all, which is why the 3-to-1 rule comes in, but it's especially important for you to have people that are already brick and mortar in your community, that are already in the path of your client avatar, that are already meeting these people day in and day out to have a business partnership. So this 3-to-1 rule, how do I use it when I look at a business partnership? So I want to see what are the advantages that having this business partnership can bring me. Typically, it's going to be like the things that I just listed. 1, they are already in the local area. They are already in front of my client avatar and they have that brand recognition. 2, they have already worked with these client avatar. They have already greased the wheels, so to speak, on their purchasing value. That's the second one. And the third one could also be something not even having to do with your customer or your potential client. It could be something as simple as getting to know a local business owner in the area and not feeling so alone in entrepreneurship. Those are 3 really good positives. In fact, there's more than 3 if you break all those apart and really dig down into each one. What could be a negative that comes out of this? This is something that I see happens a lot. People get so overwhelmed, and when I say people, I mean photographers. Photographers get so overwhelmed and excited about all the positives that they ignore this really common one negative. They hear about this person's business practices or their reputation in the community, and they push that aside because they're so focused on all those positives, getting in the path of the client avatar, knowing that these people are ready to buy, that they're qualified leads, all of this that they get excited about that looks really good on paper, but that 3-to-1, that one that's in that formula, that one hits you in the gut and you know, oh man, I've heard things about their reputation, but they brush it off and they move forward with the pros, and then they end up having it bite them in the rear in the end because they end up realizing that that is not a horse that they wanted to hitch their cart to. So just keep that in mind as we walk through this. That is kind of the analytical process that I want you guys to use when we are determining whether we're going to take a specific advertising option, if we're going to take a step to protect our intellectual property, or maybe a specific tax election that we're going to choose to help our business. Use this 3-to-1 rule in order to help you make that gut instinct, not just gut, but it's going to help you, it's going to become a gut reaction once you work through this 3-to-1 over and over and over through the course of your business. We're talking about things that you guys don't know. I can't fault you. You don't know what you don't know. That is what the LawTog, the legal resource for photographers, and I am here for. Now, the very first thing is this advertising legalities. It's really funny because I hardly ever hear anybody ever mention anything with marketing legalities. I mean, it's really hard for me to find content and information, especially accurate content and information out there for this. So we're going to kick off with this because I feel like marketing is way more fun and sexy rather than your tax elections or your intellectual property that we're going to dig into after this. But advertising and marketing is fun. I think that especially once you get your arms around it, you'll realize how empowering, exciting, and it just is, I don't know, it's intoxicating to me because I can take a direct action and see a result coming from it. I can see my business grow, but only if I'm legal. So advertising legalities and marketing and stuff is regulated by the FTC. It's really for all about consumer protection laws. They do vary by state, but the FTC puts out these guidelines and specific requirements on a federal level, and then the states adapt them as well. So I'm going to give you guys the general federal information, and just make sure you remember that federal can have a really wide law, and then states can narrow it. You can't really go the opposite direction. So keep in mind when I talk about some of these specifics, the states may have specific requirements to make sure you dig in and find out your consumer protection stuff. So the reason for these type of laws is because the government understands and believes, and I believe this as well, that business owners have a higher standard. They should be held to this higher standard than consumers. His responsibility is put on us in order to make sure that we are not deceptive, to make sure that we are not cheating, to make sure that we are going to be forthcoming with our potential clients and clients. Because what is honestly, from an ethical standpoint, I know we're normally talking about legals, but from an ethical standpoint, why be in business if you're going to do it wrong? I think at the end of the day, it's going to come back and bite you in the end. And so why build a business on shaky foundation? I think of it kind of like a sandcastle. If I'm going to build it on sand, what's going to happen when a wave comes along? It's going to take it all down, right? And so I think of my business in the exact same way. And I feel like these advertising legalities help to form a stronger base so that should something come along, you're able to defend yourself. You're able to prove that you did the right thing. If not legal, then you did the right thing for humanity. But that's just a little rant of mine because I truly believe in the photography industry, and I believe that we can elevate ourselves since we are relatively unregulated, that we should be holding ourselves accountable and holding other business owners accountable within our industry in order to elevate it all together. Because you guys know we're already fighting these preconceived notions by consumers, and we don't want to add to that, and advertising legalities is one of those. So let's kick right off. The first one is pricing for sales. I find that this is something that people get a little bit confused on. Before I move into it, I want to say you should be pricing yourself to allow yourself to have a buffer to discount your prices, although I'm not a big fan of discount, but I'm going to use the word discount. It could be incentive. It could be well, I guess incentive is really the proper word here, but you want to allow yourself, when you created your pricing, you have your cost of doing business, that includes how much you should get paid, that includes all your savings for the business, that whole big long list of your CODB that you should have. Yes, there should be a buffer built into all pricing that allows you to be able to have the flexibility to discount if that's into your business, or to incentivize. And what I mean is by incentivize is maybe offer extra product to your client once they reach a certain spending level, right? But where is that money going to come from? Well, you want to have it built into your pricing in order to allow for you to be able to offer that incentive to that client. So off the board, I think you guys should have pricing flexibility. So that's not what I'm saying when I move in to say that you should not run these random discounts after you've ramped up your pricing. Let me back up for a second. You want to set your pricing to allow the discounts or incentives from the get-go, but you should not be increasing your prices simply to be able to do a sell. So let me, I kind of think of it like a heartbeat monitor that you see on like those ER shows and such. You know how it goes, it's going along and it's beating, then all of a sudden it has a spike, and then it goes back down, it goes along beating, and then has another spike, and it goes back down. That's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the pricing. You come out the gate, you've got your pricing, you're good to go, blah, 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 you're moving along. Well, then all of a sudden you decide, all right, I need to make some money. So for the month of March, I'm going to increase my prices $1,000 so that I can discount them in order to be able to have my potential clients feel like they're receiving a discount or receiving some value to them. But after March is over and after that promotion is over, I'm going to go right back to that steady beaded line. I'm going to go right back to my original pricing. You cannot do that. That is deceptive. Now, like I said at the very beginning, if you came out the gate with your cost of doing business, you came out the gate with your pricing properly, and you had that wiggle room to discount or incentivize, you can do that. But you cannot merely move along, increase your prices immensely just so you can discount or incentivize, then go back to where you were. Yes, this does not mean that you cannot change your pricing. But what it does mean is you cannot change or increase your pricing in order to be able to provide a discount or incentive just for a marketing promotion. I hope that makes sense for you guys. So the rule of thumb with this is make sure you have a buffer to allow yourself, if this is your business model, to allow yourself to have discounts or incentives for your clients. The next thing is sponsored ads. Now, we all know that sponsored advertising, we see it in our Facebook feed all the time. This is particularly important when you guys are recommending other business partnerships in your area. If someone is paying you to have an advertisement for them, you may have a formalized agreement. And yes, while you may have storytelling and this networking are very powerful marketing tools, you have to make sure that the sponsored advertisements are identified as such. Another example could be a lot of these labs now are creating these affiliate style programs where you can upload images or select certain templates, and you send that link to your clients, and then they're able to choose, but you're receiving commission off of that. A lot of times that will fall under the sponsored advertisement or affiliate link marketing. Another example would be like Moo business cards is the most classic example I see in Facebook groups. It's a refer a friend link, right? You're going to receive $10 back if you refer a friend through that link. That is sponsored, and it should be identified as such. Now, going back to the one example that I gave, I feel like is most applicable to you guys and most open for abuse and being targeted, is that people will formulate these local business relationships, which you guys should be doing if you haven't gotten that by now. And you will have a formalized agreement. I'm kind of crossing over into referral marketing here, but you guys will have a formalized agreement, or maybe a local business will pay you to run an ad for them. That needs to be identified that that's a paid for advertisement. The good thing is with Facebook ads, they automatically append the sponsored word to it. If you are posting just on your Facebook page, you need to make sure you identify the disclosure that it is a sponsored advertisement, or like in the case of the Moo link, that it is a sponsored or affiliate link. Now, the guidelines the FTC provides are fairly vague, but one of the big things that they really say when it comes to sponsored ads is that you can't bury this in the footer. You can't bury it in the terms of your site. You need to have it as close to the advertisement or the link as possible. And it also needs to be in the same delivery, such as is it a text or an image as the link or the sponsored portion as well. So for example, say you have a blog post and you talk about your Moo business cards, you take a picture of them and you link to Moo business cards. You need to not put that all the way at the bottom of the blog post, not in the footer of your website. You need to identify either with words like afflink or sponsor or something that demonstrates the disclosure that you may receive compensation from those ads. All right, so moving into referral marketing, because when you're working with a local business, typically this is where it's going to fall. It's probably not so much going to be that the local cupcakery has asked you to run an advertisement on your page. They're going to pay you for it and you're going to do it. Typically, it's going to be more of this referral marketing. This can include business to business, like I just outlined. This can include for your clients or potential clients. This can include if you are maybe a senior photographer and you have a referral program, such as a client rep program. You must always disclose any referral that is a formalized agreement. The premise of this is to ask yourself, would that client or potential client, would they perceive my recommendation differently if they knew that I was receiving money for it? One of the most classic examples of this for wedding photographers specifically is when you have a wedding event planner and a wedding photographer, and the event planner and the photographer have agreed. If event planner sends the photographer a client, she'll receive $250. Just picking a number out there. Please don't just go and apply that to your business now. Or it can also go the other way. It can be a two-way street. If the photographer recommends that event planner and those clients book the event planner, she'll receive $250. It is required that it is disclosed in a formalized agreement such as that to the client that money will be exchanging hands, that you guys will be compensated for your recommendation. A lot of you, if you're already in a business relationship like this, may not even know that this was a requirement on you, right? Or some people may know, but they were afraid to institute it or even abide by it because they were afraid to make their clients feel awkward about it. So I want to teach you guys pretty much how I tell my clients that come to me or the people that I'm referring out exactly how I disclose this referral marketing, these arrangements that we have. I work in the sandwich method. I have bread, which is like the fluff, squishy, gooey, fun stuff. I've got the meat in the middle, which is the information about the referral marketing. And then I have some more bread. So for example, this is what I would say. Hey Tina, thanks so much for wanting to book me. I'm so happy that you got a recommendation from XYZ Event Planning. I think that we're going to work very well together as a team for your wedding on May 17th, 2019. I am really excited about the aesthetics and the ideas that we talked about. I can't wait to talk further. That's the bread. Now here's the meat. So just to let you know, since XYZ Event Planning referred you over and that you are going to book with me, she is going to receive $250 compensation. Or I don't even feel like you need to say the compensation amount. You could just say this. Since XYZ sent you over here, she's going to receive some compensation for that recommendation. But just to let you know, she and I don't recommend one another just for the compensation value. We do it because we love working together. We feel like we're a really good team fit for you. We feel like we could give you an all-inclusive, all one-stop place and experience to make your special wedding day special and fun. Simple and easy, just like that. Just like that, guys. Doesn't have to be this huge fanfare of X, Y, and Z event photography and my photography business are going to swap money between each other. Now, I joke. I kind of had like my hands on my hips saying that, but the reason I give such an extreme example is because there's this preconceived notion that you have to make it such a big, scary disclaimer, or this disclosure rather. You don't have to shed all this huge spotlight on it, but you are required to disclose any formalized referral agreement. Now, on the flip side, say that you're incentivizing your clients to send people to you, right? And it almost is beneficial to use the fact that for your clients to use the fact that they're going to be receiving compensation in order to do what they're trying to do. They're trying to talk about you, right? One of the classic examples, especially with senior reps, is when your clients go out and talk to their friends and say, hey, X, Y, and Z Photography is going to be taking my photos. I'm so excited. You should go to them because if you go, I receive $250 towards my session, and that will really help me get my senior photos for this year because without it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my session done. People are more likely to help, and first of all, you've disclosed, right? You completely disclosed that money is going to be, or some sort of compensation is going to be giving to that that referring party rather. And then also it adds a human interest part. People love to help their friends. So I'm more likely to help someone when they tell me, that they're going to receive X, Y, and Z, and especially the reasons for why they're engaged in that program with the photographer, rather than just saying, hey, buy me photos. Because we already know that it's a fight trying to demonstrate the value of photos to the common public, right? Even when you've identified your client avatar, we want to try to build up the value in every area, and that's one area that you can do it as well. Now, without getting way too much into this, but I do want to throw in a little kink so you guys can understand this. If you have a client who sends you a referral, you didn't have a formalized agreement, and you send that client who referred maybe a $25 gift card, you don't have to disclose that because there wasn't a formalized agreement. However, should you continually always send a gift every single time that another business or another photographer or a client sends you refers a client to you, and it ends up becoming such a commonplace type of action that you're going to send a gift, and that it could cross the line. I would strongly argue that it would cross the line into a formalized agreement, even if you guys never stood there or never put in writing to say, hey, if you refer someone to me, I'll give you $25 and vice versa. even without the formalized agreement, if this action of doing it all the time, and it may be that the referring party comes to rely on that, then there's a strong argument that could be a formalized agreement. So just keep in mind, referring or disclosing this referral stuff really is important to CYA. And in the same vein with testimonials, if you incentivize your clients to give you testimonials, technically that's supposed to be disclosed as well. What I prefer to do so that I don't have to attach this disclosure to all of the testimonials online is I prefer to have people give me a testimonial and then I'll send them something after. Typically, I'm not going to get repeated testimonials, so I'm not going to fall into that danger of what I just talked about a second ago, where you have the repeated action over and over and over and over. Probably not going to cross the line of a formalized agreement and need to disclose. Even if I only get one, a couple of testimonials, typically you're only going to get maybe 1, 2, maybe 3, depending on how long you photograph them. Just keep in mind that you don't want to cross that line. And if you do incentivize, and that can be incentivizing with product, print credit, gift card, cash, any of that, you need to make sure that you definitely disclose that so that the person that is relying on that recommendation or that referral is informed of the agreement or the incentive that's coming along. And one last thing I'm not going to spend too much time on, but sometimes people use gift certificates or vouchers or credits in order to, in their marketing. I have linked you guys to the state gift card law list. It's the bit link for you. You can check that out. That is very state specific. So just making sure that you guys are abiding by all of those so that you don't get caught up into something. Moving on next, really quick portion is website legalities. 2 very important things that you guys need to have on your website: terms of use and a privacy policy. Shameless plug, we do have these for photographers over on the Law Talk for you. But with the terms of use, it outlines the terms of any of your potential clients, business network clients, anybody that visits your site, the terms for using it. You want to include information such as the purpose of the site, your contact information, intellectual property information, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. And you can link to your privacy policy, any warranties that you have, and the governing law and venue should there ever be a claim against you for the use of the site. The second thing is your privacy policy. This is especially if you're using opt-ins, trying to get clients or potential clients onto email lists. If you're not doing that, you're missing the boat greatly. But your privacy is going to outline what you, the site, are going to do with their precious private information. You need to let them know that you're collecting the info and what you will do with it. And this includes the tracking cookies and links, such as affiliate links, like we just talked about a little bit ago, and also Facebook pixel tracking, and Google AdWords tracking. So best practices, make sure that they are fine-tuned to your state laws. Make sure that you are, if you are allowing online checkout for products, that you have a pop-up checkbox. Not all states require that the terms of use. Notice the distinction there. The terms of use, which is typically linked to the bottom of your site, is not necessarily a pop-up. There are some minority states. Virginia is one of them. I know that off the bat since I'm licensed here. Virginia is one of them that really wants you to have a pop-up that for all your visitors to agree to the terms of the site. Not all states require that, but should you have a checkout option, so this is the distinction here, not just the terms of site, but the terms of the purchase, I recommend that all terms of purchase, no matter the state, requires that there's a checkbox. You want to periodically update them and make sure that they're in line with your business practices and any laws, as well as you can put it in the footer, like I mentioned, and I already mentioned the pop-up. One thing I do want to address here on the intellectual property information, a nice little crash course. With copyright and trademark, there is no real requirement that we tell our clients that something is copyrighted, especially trademark either, because it's if it's registered, then we've got the protections. It's in the registered database. The thing about it is, the reason I really put in an intellectual property information section that cites that all text and photos are copyrighted, that all logos and brand names are trademarked, is because I feel like we as photographers have a duty to educate our clients, and also it's here so that should there ever be an issue, this is one more thing that I can use as a lawyer, maybe you're a lawyer, that I can use as a lawyer to argue that the person who infringed your copyright or treaded on your trademark didn't really have much of an argument. No innocent infringer type of situation, or they just can't say, well, I didn't know. I mean, yes, by law, you probably don't need to have this in here. You don't have to tell people that you are the copyright owner of said image. You don't have to put a copyright notice. That's not a requirement of copyright protection anymore. It used to be a long time ago, but we don't have to do that. I just feel like this strengthens the argument as a lawyer. Should we ever need to go after someone, then we can cite not only the requirement that copyright law does not require notice. We can say, even though it doesn't require a notice, we provided you notice in the terms of the site, which spelled out that everything is protected. So again, not a legally required thing. It's just really good to put that out there to help educate clients or visitors to the site. Again, yes, not everyone's going to read your terms of use, but it's not even necessarily about that. It's about circling around to strengthening your argument should something ever occur. So that was a little crash course on copyright and trademark. If you guys want more information, I absolutely love those topics. We can talk about it at another date. All right, so one of the big things that I feel like is something that a lot of people don't truly understand is tax choices by formation. I'm going to go into the different business formation choices, and I'm going to give you guys some information about taxes. Now, I want you to know that I'm not a CPA. I'm not specifically a tax attorney, but I do work with tax issues because I work with business formation stuff, and it all kind of intertwines. So the choices that you guys really have, and now if you're zoning out because you think you've checked the box and you've moved on and you're good with this, please tune back in. When you have your business formation, it is not just a check the box and never come back and assess it. And I'm going to talk you through the choices why here in a second. But as your business grows, your needs also grow. Your liability protections also grow. So crash course on business formation. Sole proprietor is the default option. So even if you've never filed anything, you are by default a sole proprietor. All of your business assets and all your personal assets are in one singular bucket. Everything goes on the exact same tax return. There is really not any tax benefits outside of the regular deductions and type of business expenses there as well. I mean, like, there's not much to it. Everything is pretty much taxed together with all your personal stuff. So bottom line also here is if you are sued, your personal assets can be touched. Now you have limited liability company or an LLC, and this is where a lot of you probably are sitting, and that's fabulous, but I'm going to give you a nice little twist here when we get to number 3. But a limited liability company is formed through typically the Secretary of State. It's at the state level. And you file an articles of organization, and it separates out your personal assets from your business assets. So should you be sued, we can try to protect your personal assets as they are presumptively separated from your business assets. My little rant soapbox thing here is I want you guys to keep in mind that you should not be having CPAs set up businesses for you. I know they do it. Technically, it can be an unauthorized practice of law, and they don't truly understand business liability. They don't understand what is best for your business plans. They don't, not always, and I'm saying this is from the majority of CPAs I work with. There's some really good ones out there who may also be lawyers who have the licensing to be able to form the business for you. But one of the biggest downfalls I see, especially when LLCs, is that a CPA will say, okay, fabulous. I think an LLC would be a really good thing for you. Let's get it set up. Okay. But then they don't take the next step, which is where the lawyers come in. They don't take the next step to advise you on how to maintain that LLC protection. Just because you file your articles of organization doesn't necessarily mean that you've earned liability protection. The business wants you to work for it, right? So just filing it is not enough. So this is really where the big danger comes in. So not only does an LLC not really provide that much of tax benefits to you, because in the eyes of the IRS, it's a disregarded entity. It's really no different than a sole proprietor. But there's things that you need to make sure you're doing as an LLC so that you don't pierce the corporate veil, so you don't combine the two buckets and end up having your personal assets on the line as well as your business assets. But from a tax perspective, LLC doesn't do much benefits for you, but it can do great benefits for you from a liability perspective. So the next option, and this is where I myself, all the attorneys that I've worked with and all the CPAs I've ever worked with really recommend for the standard photography business. It's an LLC with an S Corp election. So your LLC is set up on the state level, the Secretary of State, your articles of organization, potentially your operating agreement that varies on which state requires you to have that. But you get what is called an S corporation election. So essentially, you become an S corporation in the eyes of the IRS. You get the benefits of this pass-through taxation without having to do all of the no fun corporation formalities on the state level. Corporation formalities can include shareholder meetings, issuing of shares, required board meetings, identifying board members, submitting all of these, because all of these formalities also come with money attached to them, all these filing fees you have to do with the state. So for me, my big recommendation is typically, not all of you, don't just blindly apply it to your business, but typically be in an LLC at the state level to get the separate bucket protection between your personal and business assets is great. So you don't have to deal with the formalities of an S Corp, but then you can file a document with the IRS to get that S corporation election for you. And then of course the last, well, before I jump into that, let me say here, any type of corporation that you are, a regular corporation or an S corporation, and S just identifies the subchapter of the IRS code, which is giving you this taxation benefits, all require that then become an employee of the LLC. So a standard LLC, you don't necessarily have to become an employee of it, but you have to become a W-2 employee if you take this S corporation election at the IRS level. So now just a little crash course on how this S corporation tax benefit works. Like I said a little bit ago, an LLC by itself is no different than a sole proprietor. All your monies in everything, generally speaking, all of your monies go into one singular bucket with everything else. It all goes on your regular tax return. There's really no differentiation. Sure, you've got the limited liability protection, but there's not really any tax benefits. By taking this step to elect this S corporation election, you then have you then become a W-2 employee. So not only does your salary then limit, your personal income tax is then going to be limited, which can help you, especially the more money that the business starts bringing in. So instead of the entire pie being subjected to the personal income tax bracket that you're in, only the portion that you are W-2 paychecked will then be taxed to that. And the other portion is then taxed for on a business percentage. So for example, let's say you make $100 or $100,000 for the year. Your LLC brings in $100, but your paycheck is $60,000. So then you've got a $40,000 balance. If you are just a regular LLC without this S corp election, you are taxed on their personal income tax is on $100,000. That's not counting any deductions and anything like that or credits. That's just straight off the board. This is where it starts. But if you have this S corporation election or you're a W-2 employee, then your personal income tax is only on that $60,000, and then the business tax is on the other $40,000, which can, and this is where CPAs are fabulous and come in, can be a lower tax percentage, especially if you're doing your tax return filing married jointly tax return, which can push up your income tax bracket. I really recommend the LLC with the S corporation election. And of course, the corporations, the S corporation, if you're an S corporation at the state level, as well as S corporation with the IRS, is all kind of the same tax benefits here. It just has those extra required corporate formalities that I don't really necessarily think that the standard solo photography business necessarily needs to dig into, because you can get the same tax benefits with the LLC and the S corporation election. Now, yes, this is definitely where I think a CPA can come in and run the numbers, because off the bat, it may not be beneficial for you to do this S corporation election, because once you W-2 yourself, the business has to start paying employer taxes. And if those employer taxes numbers outweigh what your savings would be, then it's not worth doing it. But typically, I see when people start making six figures and above is really when you need to start being vigilant into this as an option. So best practices for this: make sure you get the lawyer insight on the formation from the liability perspective. Make sure they walk you through how to implement an LLC or corporation properly so you don't get in trouble or lose your limited liability protection. Then you want to have your CPA insight on the formation, just like the example I gave you a second ago, to make sure that is even beneficial for you to take that election. Balance all of this against your business plan. Check out your projections for the year. Look at last year's. See, do you have some big marketing efforts that you're pretty sure are going to pay off? Maybe that's something you need to consider, because you may bump up over that edge to where, even though you're paying employer taxes, that may still benefit you more to take that S Corp election than without. And then make a plan to make these changes. So maybe right now you're listening and you're like, oh, I'm just a sole proprietor. I'm just barely making ends meet. That's fine. Make a plan to reevaluate your formations and reevaluate your tax choices, because you don't want to end up in 5 years when things get busy and all of a sudden you have a huge tax bill, and it could have been limited or reduced by just taking this simple election, which really is simple as filing a form. I know that was a lot of information for you guys. I do want to thank you for your time with this. I want you to not be overwhelmed. Please take the notes that hopefully that you took and just go step by step. When you have the advertising legalities, just use it as a checklist to make sure that you're doing your referral marketing or your linking and all of that properly to your clients and your referrals. For your tax election, see if you need to reach out to a CPA to get a revision on what you've been doing. They can look to see so you can make any plans for changes. Just make sure that you guys are on task with all of this. Have your website legalities in order with the terms of service and the privacy policy, especially if you're taking email addresses from your potential clients or clients to put them on a newsletter list. And if you're not, you're missing out huge. But if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to thelawtalk.com. And again, I'm Rachel Branke. You can find me anywhere on the web at Rachel Branke, and I'd be more than happy to help try to find some answers for you. I may not be able to legally advise on your specific situation, but myself and my team are really good at trying to direct you to resources. We also have a really good active Facebook community. It is the Law Talk, and you can just jump in. There's years worth of questions and content and a great community manager to help you find the information that you need. Thanks, guys.